The American Industrial Revolution was marked not only by the changing face of American industry, but also by the changing face of America. As mills and factories sprouted across the land, cities grew up around them. In turn, the cities beckoned to workers by the millions on the American countryside and from overseas to fuel the burgeoning industrialization. What was once a rural nation was rapidly becoming an urban state. Between 1860 and 1910, the urban population grew from 6 million to over 44 million. Rural Americans abandoned their farms to take factory jobs in the big cities. Joining them en masse were new immigrants from overseas. By 1870, they were arriving on American shores at a rate of nearly 400,000 per year. By 1882, this number had doubled to 800,000 annually. This tide of urban migration brought with it new social problems. Until 1885, most immigrants were from Northern Europe and Britain. But by the late 1880s, people from Southern and Eastern Europe and Latin America began to disembark from the transcontinental steamships, creating racial and ethnic tensions. Due to increased cultural diversity, the scope of social problems began to grow. These were the landless, the unskilled, and poverty-stricken. The huddled masses that Emma Lazarus reflected upon in her poignant inscription for the Statue of Liberty.
Give me your tired, your poor, your huddled masses yearning to breathe free, the wretched refuse of your teeming shore. Send these, the homeless, tempest-tossed, to me. I lift my lamp beside the golden door.
Growth of American urban centers was nothing short of astounding. In the 20 years after 1870, the population of Minneapolis grew from 13,000 to 165,000. Denver grew from 4,700 to 107,000. And New York had a population of over 2 million. Chicago and Philadelphia had more than 1 million citizens each, and Baltimore, Boston, and St. Louis were home to nearly 500,000 people. Housing, water, and crucial services such as sanitation, roads, and bridges were woefully inadequate. New tenements sprung up and were immediately overcrowded. Garbage collection efforts and police and fire protection simply could not meet the overwhelming demand from city dwellers. Journalist H.L. Mencken described the stench of 1880s Baltimore like a billion polecats. Widespread corruption in the cities was blamed on immigrants who crowded dilapidated buildings, packed the jails, and voted for the candidates of powerful politicians in return for small favors. In 1900, a local journalist marveled at the capacity people displayed to survive in deplorable conditions. The wonder is that they are not all corrupted, and speedily, by their surroundings. 19th century sociologist William Graham Sumner held the controversial belief that the fittest members adapt to the environment and prosper, while weaker members do not. For the social Darwinists, these principles of natural selection applied to capitalism. The more prevalent view, championed by the wealthy, including John D. Rockefeller, was that the power to make money is a gift from God. Modern America rose from the foundations laid by men such as Rockefeller, and history views them kindly for their contributions. But despite their wealth, they were often reluctant to share the good fortune with their employees. Employees often worked 12 to 18-hour days. Factories were dark, dirty, and dangerous. Working conditions in many factories were shocking. One Massachusetts textile worker compared the animosity between worker and employer to the former feeling of bitterness between the North and the South. While business tycoons risked huge amounts of money to gamble on technological advances in new markets, they were unwilling to share profits with their workers. Their words reflect the expectations of one Massachusetts employer. I regard my work people just as I regard my machines. When my machines get old and useless, I replace them. It's the same with these people. As long as they do the work for what I choose to pay, I get out of them what I can. Many factory machines were run by women and children, some as young as 8 years old. These children, who were paid less than adults, were forced to work the same long hours. This was a typical factory workday for children in the textile factories around 1870. Many families depended on the small incomes of their young children to survive in America. These are the words of Sadie Frown, a 16-year-old sweatshop girl.
Those machines run like mad all day long. Sometimes my finger gets caught and the needle goes through it. If it goes through the nail, too, it hurts real bad. But I just tie a rag around it and keep on sewing. Sometimes the finger has to come off. Y'all have accidents like that.
If workers complained, they were quickly replaced with other immigrants eager for work. These conditions planted the seeds for labor reform. The skilled workers, cigar makers, printers, and iron workers began to organize in 1875. Soon after, factory workers also began to unite. They sought to get equal pay for women and shorter work days. By the end of the decade, union membership reached 300,000. In 1877, pay cuts totaling 20% caused Baltimore and Ohio rail workers to strike. 2/3 of the nation's rail service was affected. 10 workers in Baltimore were killed in the resulting riots. Another 26 in Pittsburgh died, prompting President Rutherford B. Hayes to call out federal troops, thus ending the strike. These events led to the formation of the Knights of Labor in the 1880s, led by Terence Powderly. This organization worked to improve adverse sweatshop and factory conditions and to outlaw child labor. The Knights were at odds with the more conservative American Federation of Labor, a movement headed by Samuel Gompers. Gompers emerged as leader of labor reform, leading the AFL from 1886 until his death in 1924. By 1900, laws were being passed to improve housing conditions, health, and education for the poor.